Picture this. Saturday afternoon in Montgomery, Alabama. Late August. The kind of heat that sits on your skin and doesn't move. You're standing in your own backyard. The one you landscaped yourself. The patio you laid brick by brick across 3 weekends. Ribs on the smoker. Sweet tea sweating in mason jars. 20 guests give or take. Kids tossing a football in the side yard. Your wife's at the head of the table, wine glass in hand, talking louder than she needs to. Then she starts telling a story, and the laughter changes. You all saw Rodney at Walt's graduation last May, she says, leaning forward like she's sharing a secret. Big tough contractor, 6'2", 220, standing there crying. I mean crying. Full waterworks. In front of the whole auditorium. The table goes quiet. Not the comfortable kind. She takes another sip. Swirls it. Sobbing. Our 16-year-old had to hand him a tissue. The kid was more composed than his father. She looks right at you. It was embarrassing. Donnie Ingersoll, your next-door neighbor, HOA president, the man who once measured your fence with a tape measure and left a typed notice about 2 inches, leans back in his plastic chair with a grin. That right, Rod? Big man got emotional at the ceremony. A woman at the end of the table coughs into her napkin. Someone reaches for the potato salad like it's an emergency. Your wife points her glass at you. You're not a real man, she says, smiling, like it's the punchline she'd been rehearsing all day. A few people laugh. Short, forced. The kind of laugh that's really just looking for the exit. Rosalind Caldwell, your friend since before Sandra, since before any of this, catches your eye from across the table. She's not laughing. She's watching you the way someone watches a fuse. You look at your wife. You look at Donnie. You take a sip of your water. Set it down. You nod. Once. Slow. Calm. You don't say a single word. That was my barbecue. My backyard. The patio I built. The wife I married 18 years ago. My name is Rodney Enright. And here's the thing about that evening. It wasn't the beginning. It was the end. I'm a general contractor. Have been for 22 years. Built custom homes across Montgomery. Most of the new construction in Cloverdale and Old Cloverdale. I built our house on Fairview Avenue with my own crew. Foundation to roof. Every beam, every joist, every tile. Sandra picked the paint colors. I picked up the paintbrush. We met when I was 26 and she was 23. She was a paralegal at a firm downtown. Sharp, organized. Had this way of walking into a room like she already knew everyone's name. I married her because when I told her about a custom staircase I designed, she asked to see the drawings. Nobody asked to see the drawings. Walt came 2 years later. I coached his little league team. Taught him to measure twice, cut once. Watched him go from a kid who was afraid of thunder to a 16-year-old who could frame a wall straight if I needed a hand on a Saturday. I remember one evening. Walt was maybe 10, the 3 of us sitting on the back porch after dinner. Sandra had her feet up on my knee. Walt was drawing in a sketchbook, and the crickets were louder than any of us. Nobody was performing. Nobody was posting. We were just there. That's the evening I keep going back to when I try to remember what we were. 3 years into the marriage, a tornado tore through our street, ripped the roof off the garage, cracked the foundation on the east wall. Insurance covered half. I covered the rest. 4 months of evenings and weekends. Sometimes past midnight. Sandra brought coffee out to the driveway at 10 p.m. and held the flashlight while I sealed the roof deck in the dark. We were a team. That was the last time I remember feeling like we were building the same thing. 18 years. That's how long I stood in that marriage. Not because I was afraid to leave. Because I believed in what I'd built. But somewhere around year 15, the foundation started shifting. The kind of shift you feel before you see. Here's what year 15 looked like. Sandra started sleeping with her phone face down. Always. Kitchen counter, nightstand, bathroom shelf. I'd be talking about a project bid, and she'd be scrolling, not even pretending to listen. I'd reach for her hand on the couch, and she'd shift the phone to the other hand like I'd interrupted something important. Once, I remember this clearly. I was telling her about a play Walt made at practice, a route he ran, and she held up one finger without looking up. One finger. Hold on. Like I was a client on hold. Then came the door. She started going to bed 2 hours before me. Every night. Door closed. Light off. Not after a fight. Not because she was sick. Just done with me for the day. I'd stand in the hallway some nights, hand almost on the doorknob, listening to nothing. No reading light through the crack. No movement. Just a closed door in a house I built with my hands. I told myself she was tired. People get tired. You tell yourself a lot of things at midnight in a hallway that used to feel like yours. Then Rosalind called. Tuesday afternoon. I was on a job site in Prattville, eating lunch in my truck. "Rod," she said, and something in her voice made me set the sandwich down. "Do you know what Sandra's been telling people?" I didn't. "She told Marcy Hilton your marriage is over. She told Janine Torres you don't touch her anymore. She posted a story last week, a quote about outgrowing someone you used to love. With a sunset background, Rod. A sunset." I stared at the half-framed house in front of me. Straight walls, level floors, square corners. Everything I built made sense. How long? Months. She's been doing this for months. The whole neighborhood knows. You're the last person in your own story. That night Sandra came home, kissed my cheek, asked what was for dinner. Same smile, same voice. Like nothing was different. Because for her, nothing was. She'd already told everyone her version of the marriage. I was the only one still living in the original. I didn't confront her. Stay with me here, because this is the part where most guys would blow up. Start yelling. Throw her phone at the wall. Beg her to explain. I called Pete Grimes the next morning. Attorney Rosalind recommended. Family law. Quiet, precise, didn't waste words. "If this goes where you think it's going," Pete said, "you want to be ready. Not reactive." So I got ready. Financial records. The deed to the house I designed, permitted, and built with a crew I trained myself. Insurance documents. Walt's school records. Everything went into a folder behind the passenger seat of my truck. I wasn't planning revenge. I was building a foundation. Same thing I'd done my whole life. Except this time, I was building it for one. Here's what Sandra didn't understand, and what Donnie Ingersoll could never see from his porch. I wasn't a man who needed time to process. I wasn't going to sit in the garage and fall apart. I'd endured 3 years of closed doors and face-down phones and a woman who posted about outgrowing me while I cooked her dinner, and I did it out of loyalty, not weakness. When I moved, I'd only move once. Now, the barbecue. Sandra calling me not a real man in front of 20 people wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation. She'd been rehearsing that line, in posts, in phone calls, in whispered conversations on Donnie's porch while I was at work. Donnie. Let me tell you about Donnie Ingersoll. He sat on that porch like it was a command center. Had opinions about everyone's lawn, everyone's parking, everyone's fence height. When Sandra started venting to him about our marriage, he didn't just listen. He leaned in, remembered details, offered advice like he had credentials. A man divorced twice with a yard full of violations telling my wife what a marriage should look like. And she ate it up. Because Donnie gave her what I wouldn't, an audience. And Sandra, by then, needed an audience more than she needed a husband. That barbecue night. Guests leave around 9. Sandra clears plates, humming like the evening was a success. Walt's in his room, headphones on. The house goes quiet, not peaceful quiet. Hollow quiet. The kind of quiet that's been building for 3 years. 10 o'clock. She goes to bed. Door closed. Light off. Right on schedule. Same as every night for the past year. I stood in the kitchen for a while. Ran my hand along the counter. Reclaimed oak I milled myself. Touched the backsplash I tiled one Sunday while she held the level. Looked at the door frame where I'd penciled Walt's height every birthday since he was 3. 7 faint marks. Still there. My kitchen. My tile. My marks on the wall. Her words hanging in the air like smoke. Then I walked to the hallway closet. Pulled out the bag I'd packed 3 days before. The folder was already in my truck. I went to Walt's room. Knocked twice. He pulled off his headphones. "Yeah. I'm heading out, son. Going to stay somewhere else for a while. Not far." He looked at me. 16 years old and already reading rooms better than anyone in this house. Is this because of what she said? It's because of a lot of things. She shouldn't have said that, Dad. No, she shouldn't have. You okay? I will be. Call me whenever you want. Day or night. He nodded. Didn't cry. Didn't panic. Steady. My kid. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Not a letter. Not an explanation. Not a goodbye. Pete Grimes. Name, office address, phone number. One line. All future communication through my attorney. She told 20 people I wasn't a real man. I told one lawyer. I drove south on I-65 for 12 minutes. Pulled into the lot of a 24-hour diner. The one with cracked leather booths and coffee strong enough to hold a spoon upright. I'd been going there for months. Mabel, the night waitress, mid-60s, read you once and never asked again. Saw me walk in and started my usual before I sat down. Black coffee, 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, no conversation required. Second booth from the back, near the window. I looked out at the highway lights. Cars going somewhere. People going home. For the first time in 18 years, I didn't have one. Sunday morning. I imagined Sandra walked to the closet around 9 and saw the empty hangers. Then the bathroom. No razor, no deodorant, no watch on the nightstand tray. Then the kitchen. The note. She called me 11 times before noon. I didn't block her. Didn't silence her. Just didn't answer. Blocking is anger. Silence is clarity. Her texts came in waves. 9 a.m. This is ridiculous. 10. You can't just leave your family. 11. Rodney, please come home. We can talk about this. Noon. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. The woman who told 20 guests her husband wasn't a real man, calling me dramatic for leaving without raising my voice. By Monday, she'd gone to Donnie. Of course. He sat on his porch with her for 40 minutes. Rosalind heard from 2 neighbors by lunchtime. By Tuesday morning, Donnie had told everyone on Fairview Avenue his version. Rodney abandoned his wife. Middle of the night. Just up and left. Classic. A man who couldn't change his own oil had opinions about my departure. What he didn't mention, I filed the paperwork Monday morning. Pete handled it. I wasn't running. I was restructuring. Tuesday. Sandra's texts turned sharp. You're punishing me for one comment at a barbecue. 1. Wednesday. Bargaining. Come home and we'll talk. I'll apologize in front of everyone. I'll take it back. You can't unsay what 20 people heard. But she treated words like paint. Just roll another coat over the damage and pretend the color underneath never existed. Thursday. Strategy. I talked to Francine Foxworth. She's a therapist. She says we need to communicate. She says you're shutting down. A therapist she found in 4 days. 3 years of closed doors, and she never thought to look for one. But the moment I left, suddenly she believed in communication. Friday morning. Quiet. No text. I almost thought she'd stopped. Then Friday night, 11 p.m. If you think I'm taking this lying down, you're dreaming. I'm not letting you take Walt. 5 days. 5 different women. Anger, bargaining, reason, silence, threat. She cycled through every version of herself, except the one who could just look me in the eye and say she was sorry. That last text told me everything. She wasn't fighting for the marriage. She was fighting for the scoreboard. I kept going to the diner. Every evening. Same booth. Mabel kept it open like a reservation. Never asked why, never asked how long. Just coffee and eggs and the low hum of the highway. Saturday morning. 1 week since the barbecue. I was in my booth when the bell above the door rang. Looked up expecting Mabel with the pot. It was Walt. Backpack on. Practice jersey. Grass stains on his knees. He slid across from me and put his hands flat on the table. Mom says you had a breakdown. I set my coffee down. Do I look broken to you? He studied me. 16 years of watching me work job sites, coach games, rebuild a house after a tornado. He knew what broken looked like. No, he said. I didn't break, Walt. I made a decision. There's a difference. She's been crying a lot. I know. Donnie comes over every day now. Sits on the porch. Tells her you'll come crawling back when you cool off. He made air quotes with his fingers. Same way I do. Donnie doesn't know me. Never did. Walt looked out the window. His jaw tightened. Same way mine does when I'm holding something back. She posted again last night. Something about men who can't handle strong women. How'd that make you feel? Embarrassed. For her. That hit me. Not because it was harsh, because he understood. My 16-year-old, sitting in a highway diner on a Saturday morning, saw what his mother still couldn't. She wasn't being strong. She was performing for an audience. And the people who mattered, the ones in this booth, saw right through it. She told Marcy Hilton you were never there for us. Walt said quietly. That you cared more about your job sites than your family. And what do you think? I think you coached my team for 3 years. I think you rebuilt the house after the storm. I think you were at every game I ever played. He looked at me. Every single one. Mabel came by. Looked at Walt. What'll it be, sweetheart? Pancakes. You got it. Dad. Walt said after she walked away. Can I stay with you? Anytime. I mean weekdays. School nights. For real. I looked at him. His jaw was set. He wasn't asking. He was telling me he'd already decided. Let me talk to Pete. But yes. The pancakes came with extra syrup and a wink from Mabel. 20 minutes later, the bell rang again. Sandra walked in. She'd been driving around looking for me, or that's what she said later. Saw my truck in the lot. Same parking lot where it had been every evening for a week, but she'd never thought to check until Walt wasn't home. She stopped at the edge of the booth, looked at Walt, at me, at the coffee, the plate, Mabel behind the counter who clearly knew my name. How long have you been coming here? Long enough. You've been coming to this place while I'm sitting at home in that house, alone. You weren't alone, Sandra. You had Donnie. That stopped her cold. She slid into the booth next to Walt. He shifted toward the window, not pulling away, just making space. Rodney, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. Come home. This isn't a point. It's a decision. Over one comment. One stupid comment at a barbecue. I looked at her. The same face I'd loved for 18 years. Same eyes that used to watch me sketch floor plans at the kitchen table. Something behind them had shifted years ago. I was just the last to notice. You told 20 guests I'm not a real man because I cried at my son's graduation. I kept my voice low enough that she had to lean in. I nodded at that table because a man doesn't argue with a drunk woman at a barbecue. He acts. She flinched. Not because I raised my voice. Because I didn't. You spent months telling everyone we were finished. You told the neighborhood before you told me. You went to Donnie Ingersoll, a man who writes violation notices about mailbox height, for advice on our marriage. You posted quotes about outgrowing the person you love. You closed the bedroom door every night for a year like I was a tenant in my own hallway. I paused, let it land. And the whole time, Sandra, I was standing in the kitchen of the house I built with my hands, waiting for you to remember I lived there. Walt looked at the table, not uncomfortable, just hearing things spoken aloud that had been true for years. Sandra's eyes went red. I didn't mean it like, you said it in front of everyone. You meant every word. People say things when they drink. Drinking didn't write those posts. Drinking didn't close that bedroom door every night. You did. She put her hand flat on the table. Palm up. Waiting. I didn't take it. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm not angry. I'm done being the last person in my own marriage to know what's happening in it. Mabel walked past, topped off my coffee without breaking stride. Sandra was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Smaller. The performance was gone. I don't know how to do this without you, she said. And for 1 second, maybe 2, I saw her. The woman I married. The one who held the flashlight in the driveway at 10 p.m. The one who asked to see the drawings. But then I saw the rest. 3 years of closed doors. The phone wall. The posts. Donnie on his porch, soaking it all up. 20 people laughing at my tears. You'll figure it out, I said. You're resourceful. She sat there for a long time. The diner hummed. Coffee maker hissed. A truck pulled into the lot outside, headlights sweeping across the ceiling and gone. Then she stood up, looked at Walt. You coming home? Walt looked at me, looked at her. I'm staying with Dad tonight. She walked out. The doors swung shut behind her. The bell rang once and went quiet. The weeks after were the right kind of still. I found an apartment on Perry Street, 2 bedrooms, 6 minutes from Walt's school. Set up his room first. New desk, good lamp, his team photo on the wall. My room was simple, bed, chair, coffee maker. Everything I needed. Pete handled the rest. Sandra hired her own attorney, a woman from her firm. The process was civil. I didn't fight for the house. I built it. Every wall, every floor, every window frame. But a house without the man who held it together is just square footage and a mortgage. Walt chose weekdays with me, weekends with his mother. His decision, not mine. I wouldn't put my son in the middle of something he didn't build and couldn't fix. Rosalind called one evening. You doing okay, Rod? Getting there. Sandra told Marcy you abandoned the family. Sandra can tell Marcy whatever she needs to. Donnie put it in the HOA newsletter. I almost laughed. Almost. Of course he did. Sandra's text stopped after the second week. No more frantic calls. No more midnight bargaining. Just silence. The kind she should have filled with honesty 3 years ago. Sandra stopped texting. Stopped posting. Donnie's porch stayed empty by the second week. Even he ran out of material. Walt told me she sat in the kitchen some evenings. At the counter I milled. In the quiet of the house I framed. He said she'd put her phone down sometimes, face up, screen dark, and just sit there. The faucet had started leaking. She didn't know who to call. I built that house to last. But I couldn't build it to be warm without me in it. Thursday evening. Late September. Air finally cooling off. I drove to Walt's school early. Parked. Got out. Walked past the lot to the football field. Empty. Lights off. Just the last orange stripe of sunset on the aluminum bleachers. I sat down on the third row. Right side, near the 50. Same spot I'd sat for 3 seasons coaching Walt's team. I could still hear it. The whistle, cleats on turf, Walt cutting left on a route I drew for him on a napkin at the diner. I cried at his graduation. Sandra was right about that. I stood in that auditorium and watched my boy walk across the stage, and I couldn't hold it in. Not because I was weak, because I'd built something, with lumber and nails and years and patience. And in that moment, one piece of it turned out exactly right. She called that embarrassing. I call it the truest thing I ever felt. My phone buzzed. Walt. Dad, you picking me up after practice? I stood up, wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, walked to the truck. Of course. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.